Okay, 7.4 intuition, things to think about. I guess, like we talked about before, if we had a circle, that was the definition. It was defined by, like, if you start with this center dot, then and if you define a fixed distance away from it, say it was like 10 feet or 5 feet or whatever we said, 5 feet. If you go 5 feet away from it, anywhere you want, you just have a string attached to this center dot, and you say, walk any direction you want, go 5 feet, call it a day. You end up having a circle, if you go to every spot that you can, because you could end up just taking the leash out and then just spinning around and marking all the places you end up. It's whatever. Anyway, that's a circle. Here's something interesting, okay, to generalize that idea. I was thinking about this. What if we said this? Okay, if it's 5 steps to get out, this will be somewhat obvious, but if it's 5 steps to get out from the center to the edge of the circle, that's 5 steps, then certainly it would be 5 steps out and then 5 steps again to get back. So 5 out and then 5 to get back. So the whole journey, if you went out there to the edge and then back, would be like 10 steps, 5 out, 5 back. Here's the way I bring this up. I wanted to generalize this to something else. Okay, so whatever, radius is 5. You could also think of it as a round trip of 10 steps because you're going out and back. So 5 out, 5 back would be like 10 steps, whatever. Here's something I wanted to think about. If you don't mind thinking about, like, when you go to the eye doctor, sometimes they have an exam where they're like, keep your eye on the dot. Here, we'll still go on the bottom left here. Keep your eye on the dot and try and focus on that dot and just look at that until it splits into 2 dots. And eventually your eyes cross far enough that it's hard to keep them straight and they start splitting into 2 dots. And that's what I wanted you to envision here. So as we're getting into ellipses, if you could envision the center dot of a circle splitting and then becoming sort of 2 separate dots. Now we have a generalization of a circle. If I had 2 sort of almost like 2 center dots, we'll call them foci, 2 focuses, if you will. But now we'll say, okay, well, what if we had that same round trip fixed distance, just like it was 5 out and 5 back with the circle? What if we said, okay, let's fix the distance between the 2 of them to be like a round trip walk of 10 steps? You could go 5 out and 5 back, just like we did with the circle. Or you could go 6 out and like 4 back, or, I don't know, 3 out and 7 back or something, or any number of combinations in between. You could even go straight the other way, maybe as like 9 or like 1 step out or something and then 9 back or something. I don't know, something like that. And you could go downward and be like 5 out and 5 back down there and then do some of the same combinations down there, of course. And it seems like if you do enough of this, you start to see a shape emerge. And it's not totally shocking that it would be this, but it seems to be if you start connecting enough of those dots, you get sort of a circular structure. It's almost circular. It's actually kind of an oval. And so, as you would figure, if you take the center and you split it out into 2 dots, going, say, left to right, it would be a sort of a circle thing that's just stretched out left to right. Still sort of a circle, but it's just stretched left to right, because now we sort of have 2 center dots, we might call it, or they're really just, the center will still be in the middle, but it's called the foci of this thing, This is what we call an ellipse. It's a set of all points that are a fixed round trip distance between 2 dots that you're given, between 2 foci. And so that's the idea behind an ellipse, of at least one way of defining an ellipse geometrically. Here's something else I noticed about it. Something that'll be important to you in your homework is that I noticed about this, if I were to take my ellipse, and I have my round trip fixed distance, 5 out and 5 back, It turns out also that if I go right into the middle, and you can kind of mold this over in your mind, playing around with the idea of having a string that's pinned to 2 little thumbtacks or something, and moving the tacks around. But what seemed to make sense to me, as I was thinking about this, if I move the string around and move the tacks and stuff, is if that's 5 out and 5 back, that's a total of 10 steps round trip. What is also a 10 steps round trip is if I were to go from the center of the circle, the actual center of it, out to the edge of the ellipse and back. That also is 10 steps because it's like, well, I guess you could say like at the onset, if I go out from one focus to the edge and then come back into the other one, that might be like 3 and 7 or 2 and 8 or something like that, because you're going less to the left and then you're coming back a whole bunch, you know. You're going out a little bit and back a whole bunch. But then if we split the difference there and we start from the middle, then we're going out and back the same amount. We're kind of growing the out distance and then shrinking the coming back distance the same amount. Ends up being the same round trip. That's not obvious or anything, but if you think about it enough, you might come to the same conclusion I did. Anyway, that'll be something that's important to keep in mind, is that if I go from that center point out to the edge and back, that's also going to be a round trip of 2 steps, or 2 sets of 5, where it's 10 steps total. It's 5 out and 5 back to get that way. And so that'll be important to remember. The rest we'll just, I think that we'll be able to handle it within the homework itself. And that's all she wrote.